Spider-Man 2 is out now, and we finally get to see Peter Parker back in action. Or at least, this version of Peter Parker. In a day as we see him battling against friends and foes alike, we're going to take a look and see just how powerful this version of Spider-Man really is. How strong he is, how fast he is, his toughness, his special abilities, everything like that. So let's get to it. What's up guys, this is DanCo. I do fight breakdowns, power ranking videos, or more deep dives into your favorite characters and franchises, with new videos every week. So if that seems great to you, well, sit back and enjoy the video. Hit that like button if you want to, or hit the subscribe button while you're at it. Now you all know the story. Peter Parker was a wimpy high school nerd until one fateful day at a science fair, the boy was bitten by a radioactive spider, granting him extraordinary abilities. However, after refusing to stop a criminal, his Uncle Ben would go on to be murdered later that night. After that day, Peter Parker took his late uncle's words of wisdom, "With great power comes great responsibility," to heart, and devoted his life to stopping any and all crime he could, becoming Spider-Man. And starting out, let's take a look at Pete's physical strength. And let me tell you, this Spider-Man is easily the strongest that we've seen outside of the comics. In fact, he's much more comparable to the likes of Comics Pete as opposed to Peter in the MCU or Raimi trilogy. Like, what's the best thing that Spider-Man has done in either of those movies? Hold up a 4-story bell tower? Hold up that big wall in order to save Mary Jane? Well, all of that is nothing compared to this Spider-Man, who's able to hold up a massive construction tower crane that appears to be up to 100 stories tall, before being knocked off the building by a helicopter. That makes everything the other Spider-Men have done pale in comparison, and is much more comparable to Pete over in the comics. And while that definitely is the most impressive strength feat Spider-Man has ever shown us, it definitely isn't the only one. He can lift cars with ease or lift up large pieces of rubble. He's even able to pull up big semi-trucks or pull down helicopters out of the air. And top it all off, Spider-Man's got some pretty impressive striking power, some even better scaling off of his villains. In the very first fight of the first game, Peter is able to straight slam Kingpin down through multiple floors. He's also able to damage another mob boss later on, fighting against Hammerhead and damaging him through his armor, even though Hammerhead already showed that he could be tough enough to survive multiple helicopter explosions. Spider-Man's also proven that he can consistently hurt Rhino, who's maybe the toughest villain in Spider-Man's rogues gallery. I mean, Rhino can completely no-sell everything that happened throughout this fight, which is included, but not limited to, jumping through multiple buildings and taking an entire power plant explosion. Pete was also able to hurt and defeat Electro, who was tough enough where he completely no-sold the destruction of a smokestack, basically equivalent to the destruction of a building. Not to mention that Spider-Man is able to take on multiple of these villains at the same time, like Rhino and Scorpion together, or Electro and Vulture. Finally, Spider-Man is even able to swing around and kick water tanks, which those things completely filled can weigh up to 100 tons. And Pete is just casually throwing them around. And then, just as strong as Spider-Man is, he's also just as tough. I mean, let's actually science this for a second. Newton's third law says that for every action, there's an opposite and equal reaction. So that means that every time a Spider-Man throws a punch and sends a man flying down the street, breaking like all the bones in his body, Spider-Man is actually taking that same force too. Then of course there are his fights against his super powerful supervillains, like Shocker, So Spider-Man shows up to save the day and stop Shocker from robbing a bank, and so he locks both of them inside the bank vault. Problem solved, right? Well, no, because Shocker punches Spider-Man and sends him flying, knocking the vault door straight off its hinges while he's at it. So most vault doors weigh in at 45,000 pounds, or 22.5 tons. But then you also have to calculate in the pressure cap, so add in another 7.5 tons. That means that Spider-Man is taking a 30-ton punch here, and he's able to instantly jump right back up and just keep on joking about it. Spider-Man is able to easily no-sell being slammed through walls. He took one heck of a beating from the Sinister Six, broke 16 different bones, and presumably went on to beat them and fight Doc Ock while still in that rough shape. Both Peter and Miles have been tossed through buildings or been thrown whole city blocks during the fight with Sandman. You could even argue that each attack Sandman threw was at least building level, seeing as how he was towering over buildings and literally destroying buildings with pretty much every attack he threw. You could also argue that in pretty much every way, Pete and Miles should scale to each other when it comes to strength, speed, and durability. And Miles survived a massive explosion that was supposed to completely vaporize all of Harlem. Miles gets back up maybe like 5 minutes after falling. I think the OG Spider-Man probably could have done the same thing. Then finally, speed. While Spider-Man can casually dodge and swing through automatic gunfire, which he does so consistently as he weaves all around. He's even able to react to minigun fire and essentially statue a rocket launcher. But what really elevates Pete and puts him comfortably into the hypersonic range are his fights with Electro. And it's no different here. He's able to react to and dodge Electro's lightning, and do this extremely consistently. And then here's the funny thing, this version of Spider-Man actually scales to the comics Spider-Man pretty much exactly. See, the Insomniac Spider-Man has actually appeared and crossed over in some of the massive Spider-Man events. Him and Miles were even in Across the Spider-Verse. And in one of those crossovers, well, he was able to keep up with the superior Spider-Man, who, for all intents and purposes, is in fact just the standard 616 Spidey. So yeah, with scaling like that, well, it's safe to say that this Spider-Man is pretty fast. And then that's just talking about physicality. Of course, we can also touch on Spider-Man's large arsenal of gadgets and weapons at his disposal. Well, for starters, there are his basic web shooters, where he can web enemies up. It allows him to swing around, not really much to say. But he's also got impact webs, a powerful web blast that instantly webs up enemies, electric webs that stun nearby enemies, and even web bombs, which are just like what it sounds, a bomb that sends out webbing in every direction when it explodes, incapacitating any enemy within range. And that's not all. He's also got a concussive blast, sending out powerful sonic waves to send enemies flying, a suspension matrix, which can lift and suspend enemies up in the air, trip mines, which are web traps that can trap enemies to nearby surfaces, and even spider drones, small, powerful drones that fly around and seek out enemies in order to fire energy blast at them. Basically, what I'm saying is that this Spider-Man actually put his super genius to good use and got himself a ton of fancy toys to take down some bad guys with. Not just basic web shooters and then punching. Then of course, all of this kinda gets flipped on its head and really amplified when we're talking about Symbiote Spider-Man. Peter even admitted it himself, he's stronger and more powerful with the symbiote. That's definitely true when you're talking about their feats. Symbiote Spider-Man is in a different class altogether when it comes to strength and striking power. That's just doubled down on by the symbiote's rage and the fact that Pete definitely isn't holding back. And it's not just strength either, it's also durability. Like there are times when Spider-Man outside of the symbiote was injured, or even stabbed and I guess technically killed. But then the symbiote suit was able to completely bring Pete back from the dead, and later on even remove the knife that was still technically inside of him. And this isn't like a one-time thing either. Did the same thing when Spider-Man's arm was just a pretzel. So at the end of the day, just how powerful is this Spider-Man? Well, taking attacks from the likes of Rhino and Sandman definitely proved that Pete can survive building level attacks, and being able to hurt them in return proves that he can dish out building level attacks as well. He's fast enough to not just easily dodge bullets, but easily dodge lightning, and even keep up with the real Spider-Man from the comics. Spider-Man has finally put his super genius to good use, building a ton of different gadgets that give him and his web shooters plenty of versatility in a fight. And if the symbiote ever takes over, well, just look out. End of the day, this is easily one of the most powerful versions of Spider-Man that we've ever seen. Definitely more powerful than any movie Spider-Man, and nearly on par with the 616 Spider-Man from the comics. But what do y'all think? Sound off in the comments down below. I know you're gonna have thoughts and feelings on this one for sure. If you stuck around this long and made it to the end of the video, that's amazing. Thank you so much for watching and for supporting us. And if you want to go subscribe, well, go subscribe. You're gonna see more videos like this one every single week. I'll see y'all then. I'll see y'all next time.